Another week has flown by, and that means it's time for our weekly economic recap.
On tonight's episode of Weekly Recap, the government shutdown may have brought our federal government to a standstill, but as for our economy, you might be quite surprised.
And what did the surprise leave in store for the Dow? Let's just say there were quite a few happy economists.
A stagnating housing recovery may be due to a nationwide trend that may not seem so dangerous, but really is doing quite a bit of damage.
And a once popular and trend-setting company that is on the verge of a fallout, and what it can do to stay alive.
I'm Danielle Castleberry.
And I'm Sam Averbuck. And here are tonight's top stories on Weekly Recap. The government shutdown caused widespread panic throughout the nation as people nervously pondered the implications of the shutdown, especially in our struggling economy. But there may not be such a need for worry. At the time, there was a major concern that payroll growth had lost its momentum, especially during a time where temporary layoffs was a common trend during the shutdown.
However, employment rates came in much stronger than expected for late October and early November. Instead of the measly 120,000 jobs that were expected to be added during this period, 204,000 jobs were added, blowing away the earlier prediction. As expected, unemployment rates did increase, however, due to the rise in temporary layoffs, as well as a drop in the labor force participation rate. But all in all, the shutdown appeared to have little to no effect on payroll numbers, as private sector employment gains were consistent and even better than expected during our moderate economic output at the time of the shutdown.
And how did this surprisingly impressive surge in payroll employment affect the stock market? Well, the Dow certainly closed out the week quite nicely. At week's end, the Dow finished with an all-time high of 15,761 points, increasing 167 points, or 1.1% from the beginning of the week. Companies who rose the most in the Dow were JP Chase and Goldman Sachs.
On the flip side of prosperous business are the not-so-prosperous ones, such as one that might surprise you. BlackBerry, the phone company that pioneered the smartphone movement, is facing tough times. With the uprise of iPhones and Androids, BlackBerry struggled to stay competitive, forcing them to surrender by putting all parts of the company up for sale. By doing this, shares saw modest gains, but now everything has turned upside down.
It turns out BlackBerry is not for sale anymore, making CEO Thorsten Heinz act as a scapegoat for the company's troubles, resulting in him getting ousted and quickly replaced. Now, their shares have fallen 16%, which is a 10-year low, with a market cap currently sitting at $4 billion, which is, get this, a 95% drop since 2008. The big question now is, what will BlackBerry do next? It seems to have only three options left. Either A, sell the company cheap, far below the share price. B, break up and sell all the pieces of the company, such as their patents and their messaging service. Or C, exit the manufacturing part of the company and just focus solely on software and service development. What will the struggling company do to stay relative? Only time will tell.
One of the main points of emphasis in our attempts at revamping our economy has been our attempts at improving the housing market. Unfortunately, over recent months, the housing recovery has struggled to stay positive. Many economists have different theories, but a new theory is resurfacing that may explain it all. This theory states that household formation has fallen dramatically. Now, what is household formation? Household formation is when someone lives in a home with someone else, and that someone decides to move out and find a new home to live in by themselves. Then you are creating a new household.
Historically, an average of 1.1 million households form every year. But this year, only 380,000 households have been formed, a drop-off of 750,000 houses. This is not what economists want to see in the housing recovery. For more households formed equals a higher result and higher demand for new housing.
There are many reasons for this lack in household formation, but the main two are simple. The younger American population who are not moving out of their parents' homes, and the population of Americans who live with roommates because they can't afford their own place. These two trends have popped up more and more and have become very common in today's world. If the housing recovery is ever able to regain momentum, these trends must come to a halt.
Well, that's it for this episode of Weekly Update.
I'm Danielle Castleberry.
And I'm Sam Averbuck, signing off from Weekly Update.